quilty friend, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber, and we are doing Christmas in July. I have been wanting to do this for months and months, and I'm so excited that it's here. I've put together some special projects and some special patterns, so let's get started. Today's project is the Hexi mug mat, and a mug mat is basically like an oversized coaster. It is a smaller than a placemat, but a little bit bigger of a coaster, so you can fit your beverage, your mug, and then maybe a cookie or a muffin, some kind of treat next to it. So just a little bit bigger than a standard coaster. For this project, you're going to need the 3-inch equilateral, or yes, 3-inch equilateral triangle template that came with the 2023 mini quilt advent calendar. If you didn't do the 2023 mini quilt advent, I do still have some of those calendars left, so go down into the description, grab that link, and get yourself a mini quilt advent calendar. All the videos for the mini quilt advent are still up, so and they will stay up. The mini quilt advent I do every year. This year, 2024, will be year 4 for the mini quilt advent, and it is 12 days where every day you get a pattern and a acrylic template to make a block, and then at the end of the 12 days you turn it into a mini quilt. Last year, 2023, I also added 12 bonus days, so you can make a mini quilt with 12 blocks in 12 days, or get the bonus days and make a little bit bigger of a quilt and make 24 blocks, still only using the 12 templates. So this is the 3-inch equilateral triangle from that mini quilt advent quilt. I, by the way, put all of my template pieces into one of these template binders from Missouri Star Academy. I have actually a couple of each template from the process of me testing and doing all the videos and whatnot. I have multiples of the different templates, so I put them all in the template binder. I found that was a great way to organize them. So I'll put a link down below to the template binder as well. And I have a special link that you'll want to look for down there too. So this is how I store mine, but you could also store yours in the zippered pouch that came with the mini quilt advent kit, or you could use that as a project pouch if you put your templates in a binder. Now the fabric that we're using for our projects, for the first 2 projects, I'm using a fat quarter bundle. So I need 3 fat quarters for the Hexi mug mat, 3 fat quarters for the placemat that we're making next week, and then you actually need 2 half-yard cuts for the table runner that we're doing the week after that. So if you wanted to do that with the same fabric, you would need to get 2 of these fat quarter bundles, and that would also give you enough fabric to make some extra placemats or some extra mug mats if you wanted. So you could grab 2 fat quarter bundles. The 4th project that we're doing actually uses yardage. It uses more fabric because it is a tree skirt, and that will be made using this year's fabric. So here's your sneak peek at the 2024 mini quilt advent. These are the fabrics that we're going to be using for that. You're always welcome to use your own fabrics as well, of course. It's just these are the ones that I've picked and that I'll be using in the videos. Okay, so also down in the description will be your instructions for how to download your free pattern. The pattern is free. You just need to have the template, which is not free. There are ways that you can find other ways to get the little 3-inch template, but I'm using the one from the advent calendar. And if you don't have the advent calendar, oh my gosh, you want the advent calendar. It's fun. Okay, so we need 3 fat quarters. 1 is going to be my backing fabric. So I'm going to take my backing fabric, which I've selected this fun fabric. By the way, these are all Art Gallery fabrics. I work with Art Gallery fabrics. I'm their celebrity. So all I ever sew with is Art Gallery fabrics. And so that's all the fabric that you'll see here on this channel. And then I have my 2 other fabrics that I'm using for this mug mat. And I'm doing this fabric and then this, which we're going to fussy cut because the mini quilt advent calendar lets us do a lot of fussy cutting. So we need to cut 12 triangles from this fabric, and they're actually going to all be the same way. So you can pick if they're going to be pointed side up or pointed side down. And I'm going to try to be a little careful about using this fabric so I don't use it all up, but I also want to pick cute little scenes here. And for the mini quilt advent templates, you can see that there is this line, and that lets you know where your seam allowance is going to hit. So anything inside this line is going to show up in the quilt or in the mug mat. So this little car is a perfect example that I want it to fit in. There we go. So now I have one. And yes, I'm going to be making a bit of Swiss cheese out of this fabric, and I'm okay with that. So we'll keep going. I've got this cute little snowman with a child and a dog. And I may get to a point where I can't quite fussy cut a really cute shape. I may use this fat quarter up a little too much, and we will figure out some other alternatives if we get that far. So we're just going to keep going, finding some cute designs, and getting these all cut up. Alright, I made true Swiss cheese out of this fabric here. There are still plenty of usable pieces on the fabric, so this is still a definitely good scrap. And one thing I'm going to mention that I didn't mention earlier, but I can really feel it on here, is that I starch these fabrics. So I have an entire video on starching fabric. I'll make sure to link that down below as well. I use spray starch, and I heavily starch my fabrics so that all these bias edges that we cut here with our equilateral triangles, we don't have to worry about those stretching. So you definitely want to starch before you start cutting. So that is all of the light colored or pointed up triangles. Now I need to do the pointed down triangles, and that is going to be 12 of them as well. Now this fabric is not directional. It doesn't matter which way I cut these. You won't be able to tell. Right, upside down, left, doesn't matter. And so I can do this easier with strips. So while this is a 3-inch equilateral triangle, it's because each of these sides will finish at 3 inches. But if I look at how big this triangle here is the triangle itself, if you cut off this top point right here, is 3 inches. It's somewhere like, it's like 3 3/8 if you include the top point as well. So we could actually bring that up to 3.5, and that would give us smaller pieces to work with. So I'm going to take my fabric here, my fat quarter. We'll start by squaring off an end. And I have my big glow ruler that I'm going to use. Speaking of Christmas, if you haven't put this on your Christmas wish list, it's a little early because it's July, but you should. These have started shipping, and they're still sold out, so any place you get them, you probably have to pre-order. But the glow ruler makes it really easy to see. So what did we say? 3.5 inches is what I'm going to do for my strips, and you'll see why in a second. 3.5. There we go. And 3.5. I need 12. I think 2 strips should be enough. So you can see I use a lot less fabric. I might need a 3rd strip. I think I'll be able to get away with 2 though. I did them along the short end, not the 20-inch. I did them along the 16, let's see, 18, no, the 16 inch, sorry, the 18-inch edge, not the 20-inch. So, alrighty. I have 2 of these strips. And I can lay them actually right on top of each other. We can cut both at the same time. And I'm right-handed, so I'm going to start from the right-hand side. And I'm cutting one edge. And this strip is a little big, but that's okay. A little big is better than a little small. And now I can cut that to size. There's a little point here that's cut off. I'm not worried about that. I'm going to bring this down. So I'm lining up the bottom edge and the angled edge. And I'm cutting 2 at a time, so I've already cut 4. And then same up here. I'm lining up that angled edge, the top edge, and that angled edge. So there's 6. I'm just going to keep going, cutting 12 of these. There we go. This is my leftover scrap. This is, dog bed scrap, but this is quilt size scrap. You can still use this for something quilty. We're going to go ahead and lay this out according to the pattern. And don't worry about which side has your little corner cut off. It's not going to matter when we put it together. But I want to have an idea for how this is all going to look, because I've got some busier houses or busier scenes and some less busy scenes, and I want to make sure that I kind of looks balanced in the quilt or in the mug mat. I had to move these 2 around so that the car was driving away from the man, not that the man and the car were playing chicken with each other. I guess it could be a woman, hard to tell. The human who is dragging the sleigh. So this is what the mug mat's going to look like. It looks really big right now because there's some space between and we haven't sewn any of our seam allowances. So it's going to shrink quite a bit as it gets sewn together. So now it is time to start sewing. I want to bring this kind of up and out of my way a little bit so that I can bring my iron over, because I don't want my iron on my my cutting mat, because it absolutely will warp the cutting mat if I do that. There we go. And when I sew these, I need to sew them 1 at a time. So you can chain piece your rows, like chain piece by sewing 1 from each of the 4 rows across at a time, but I can't just continuously sew across a row without pressing in between. So you'll see what I mean there. So we'll start by doing 1. We're not going to chain piece anything yet. I'm going to bring this to my sewing machine, and I have my 1/4 inch presser foot here on the machine. Line this up. So I have 1 sewn here, and it'll go here. Now I can't add this one on yet, because if I were to add this one on, I'd be going over this seam right here, and I don't want to go over the seam until it's pressed. So that's why you can work on different 1 from each row at a time, but you can't add on to the next row or add on to the same row until you have pressed. Now all of these I'm pressing open. If you are a side presser, you could press them to the side. It just gets a lot more bulk going on. So when I'm working on diamond quilts, my go-to is to press to the side. So I'm going to keep going. I'm going to do 1 whole row here to show you how it's done, and then we'll go ahead and finish up the other rows. Now this top piece here is lined up, but the bottom, my points are sticking out, and that is normal for triangle quilts. And that's why I didn't worry about having that corner chopped on the the second fabric that I was cutting, because that is well in the seam allowance. It will be fine. I managed to not quite press that one. All right, so we just need to add 2 more onto here. And again, we are lining up the straight edge, and the point is going to be sticking up. So that straight bottom edge is what we're lining up. If the straight edge is the top, then we would line up the top. If the straight edge, like it's here, is the bottom, then we line up the bottom. I'm adding this last one. So again, here is my dog, making sure he's right side up, flipping it over, and then this straight edge along the top is what I'm lining up. There we go. I have this top row completely done, and just for comparison, let me scooch this over a little bit. You can see how much smaller it got, because this bottom row is the same size as this top row. I just flipped this top upside down, so you can see it's quite a bit smaller than it looks all laid out. So I'm going to sew the remaining 3 rows together, and once I have those rows together, we'll come back because we'll talk about sewing the rows together to make the little mug rug. We've made all our rows, and now it's time to sew those rows together, which means that we are almost done with the top of this, and then we're going to do some super simple quilting to quilt it together. So let's look at the top. You can see it's already shrunk down quite a bit, and it's actually going to shrink in height as well. So I have my 4 rows. We'll take 2 rows and put them right sides together. And if you didn't clip off all these little dog ears, then good for you, because this dog ear here is going to line up with that point right there. And then all the dog ears down the row are going to line up to make this super easy to sew together. So let's bring it over to the sewing machine and line up those points. So it's going to be the dog ear on this one, and then the point on the top one. And if you want, you can pin. I'm not a big pinner, and this is just a fun little project, so I'm not too worried if something doesn't quite line up exactly the way that I'd expect it. I'm okay. And then you don't want to pull on anything or stretch it, because that will bring it out of whack. You just want to let the sewing machine kind of guide it in. And same here. There we go. Now I can go ahead and sew these 2 rows together at the same time as well, and that'll just leave me with 1 seam to sew right down the middle. So let's go ahead and sew the second set of 2 rows together, and then we can sew our last seam to have the top done. Now here I'm not pressing between, because these seams are all parallel seams. None of them are going across each other, so as long as I had my rows pressed, I don't need to press in between sewing the rows together. Before sewing rows together, I like to do a quick double check to make sure I have things right side up, and I should have done a quick double check on all my fussy cut pieces to make sure I hadn't twisted any of them sideways before I started sewing rows together. It's good to check it now. Looks good. So now I can sew these 2 halves together, and then I can go ahead and press all those row seams. All right, let's go ahead and give this a good press. I'm going to press all these seams open as well. I'm going to press from the back and then also press from the front. So I'm looking at all my points, and I didn't do too bad a job, and there's some where it looks actually just about perfect. So I'm really happy with how this came together. Now I'm going to grab a scrap of batting and see about turning this into an actual little mug rug. So I went into my batting pile, my scrap batting pile, and I actually found this piece of fusible fleece. It has, like, you can hear, like little glue dots on it. And so that'll be great for quickly and easily turning this into a little mug mat by being able to iron it down. Now I want to be really careful with my iron here and make sure that I don't get it on the fusible fleece itself, because then that glue will actually get on the bottom of my iron, and that's no good. But I do want the glue to fuse onto the underside of this little top of our mug mat. Now if I wanted, I could have gone through and cut all those dog ears, but I'm not too worried about it, and as I trim this up, that'll actually trim off all the dog ears. I'm going to trim this up. I'm grabbing my glow ruler again, and this time I'm not so much using the lines on the ruler, but this nice lit glow end that'll let me see that edge to trim this up. There we go. So this is trimmed up and pressed to the fusible fleece, and now I want to base this to some backing fabric. Now this is the fabric that I had picked as my backing fabric, but because I didn't need to fussy cut this fabric, I actually have enough to use it as my backing fabric, and that'll save me this whole fat quarter. So it's up to you depending on how you want to do yours. I do think, so it's really a matter of looking at, okay, I mean, that will be kind of plain, and this will add a little more color to the edge. Actually, I really do like the color that this one's going to add. So I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to grab my basting spray, and this is pretty simple. The fusible fleece isn't fusible on the back, it's just fusible on one side. So I need a little bit of basting spray. And I want to put this at least an inch from all the edges, and you'll see why in just a couple minutes. Okay, now I can add some quilting lines to this, so we'll do that next. I have a walking foot for my Baby Lock Jubilant, and I'm going to use that here. This funny looking thing is actually a little screwdriver that is super easy to use. There we go. And that allows me to take this presser foot off. And that is the 1/4 inch presser foot that I had on there. And I'm going to put on the walking foot. And the walking foot has this little arm right here. And this goes around the needle bar, the screw that holds the needle in place. So you want to have that on. Let's see. So it takes a little bit of kind of looking down. There we go. That actually went on really easy. And then screwing it in place. And the reason a walking foot is so fabulous is because it's basically adding feed dogs to the top of your machine. So the feed dogs are what pull the fabric through, but feed dogs are only on the bottom. So when you have multiple layers like we have going on here, it'll pull the bottom layer. We've got a presser foot pressing down on the top layer. So that's something pressing down on the top layer while something's pulling through the bottom layer. That can create puckers. And we don't want puckers. So an easy way to fix that is to use a walking foot, because now you have feed dogs on both the top and the bottom. And that way, when you've got multiple layers like this, it'll go through smoother. I'm also going to bump up my stitch length just because I like a longer stitch length on my top stitching. And then we're just going to put this under the machine, and we're going to do a little bit of walking foot quilting. Now, I'm using the edge of the walking foot as my guide for my stitching. and we're going to do a self-binding technique. So I'm going to go a couple of stitches forward and a couple of stitches back just to secure that edge of the binding. I guess the edge of the stitching into the binding. And then when I get to the other end, I'm going to do the same thing. Just do a couple stitches back and forth to lock those stitches. Now this is a really small little mug mat, so it doesn't need a ton of quilting. You can add as much or as little as you like. I'm just going to do just the bare minimum, which honestly, this one row of stitching would probably be enough. If I really wanted to be more secure, I could do like an X across. But I'm just going to do one echo on each side of these 3 lines and then one echo on each side of these 3 lines. So 6 little lines of stitching will secure this really well for me. Alright friends, I have another video where I show the self-binding, so I'm going to go ahead and link that here so you can go watch a very quick video on how to do this self-binding, but I'm also going to talk you through it so that you have that here. So what you do is you take your backing fabric, so once you have everything quilted, and you're going to trim your backing fabric to a 1/2 inch, which is what I did for this super skinny binding, or to a full inch if you want a thicker binding than my super skinny binding here. You're going to fold this in, fold the binding in towards the edge of the fabric, or towards the edge of the project. So I'm going to use a scrap of fabric here behind to demonstrate. So if that's my 1/2 inch there, I would fold it in towards the edge of the project. So I'm not folding over the project, I'm just folding in towards the edge of the project. And then on this side as well, folding in towards the edge of the project all the way around. And then once you've gone all the way around, then you fold it a second time over onto your project all the way around. And then once you've done that, then you can stitch. Now this is a really fun opportunity to use a zigzag stitch or any other kind of decorative stitch to stitch this down. I kept my walking foot on there and just did the same stitching that I have on my quilting so that it matches up, but you can absolutely use a fun decorative stitch around the edge. And that's it. Your cute little mug mat or mug rug is finished. It's perfect for having enough room for your beverage and then a little treat or a big treat depending on you know, your day and how you're celebrating your Christmas in July. But that's it. It's super simple to make. Friends, if you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave those down below. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel because we're doing so much fun Christmas in July fun projects, so I want you to join in. So make sure that you are subscribed and share this video with a friend because this was so easy to make, and I just used that 3-inch template from the 2023 Mini Quilt Advent. Make sure if you don't have one of those that you go down to the description, find the links for the fabric and the Mini Quilt Advents, because once those are gone, they are gone, my friends. What I have left is all that I have. We will not be making more of those because we're going to be working on our 2024 Mini Quilt Advent soon, and I have to have space on the shelves for those. Alright friends, that's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you right here real soon for some more Christmas in July.